over $268 billion invested in coal, oil, and gas firms since the Paris Agreement was signed in 2016. $51.3 billion invested in fossil fuel organizations last year alone. One of 35 international banks with investments in fossil fuels in the last 5 years that totaled to over $2.7 trillion. Woo! Banks like numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Well, Chase certainly does, so here's a couple for them. On average, the oceans are rising by 1/8 of an inch per year, contributing to flooding risks worldwide, and specifically in the U.S., has increased our average flooding by 233%. Many of our most influential and culturally important cities are coastal. A study in the Journal of Human and Ecological Risk Assessment linked half of over 300 toxic chemicals used in the fracking process to diseases of the nervous, cardiovascular, and immune systems.
How many of you guys drove a car?
None of us.
Nobody's got a car here. Nobody owns a car.
We walk.
Huh?
We walk.
No, but you own a car.
We're doing our part, are you?
Yes, I am.
Mine is all electric, and I use solar power to power.
I have 40 bicycles.
Let her finish. Start talking.
You're not going to win this argument. You're out of touch with reality.
Hey, try not to.
I am just talking to you guys.
Divest from oil.
Hey, you know what? You got to play the game to be fair.
Yeah, it does
We are all part of the system, and we're doing what we have.
Yeah.
I got solar panels on the roof and an all-electric car. You run on sunshine.
This isn't about personal guilt. It's about changing a system that we all exist in. Right? So it's not about personal guilt because we all have to participate because we all have to survive. But we can be allowed to criticize the system and want it to change. Right?
All right. Best way to change is that you just change yourself, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we make those individual change while wanting systemic change. We do both. Right? And so we serve as leaders and do what we can in our community, but it's a process of changing. But I would like Allison to finish because she's taken time to write this today. And I understand your perspective. But we... Thank you.
I understand.
Okay.
All right.
Finish?
Yeah. Another half of those... all right, let me start with this.
Hey, join us over here. She
A study in the Journal of Human and Ecological Risk Assessment linked half of over 300 toxic chemicals used in the fracking process to diseases of the nervous, cardiovascular, and immune systems. Another half of those chemicals are linked to cancer. Fracking is as dangerous to its workers as it is to the environment. I could go on for days about specific harms of climate change and the fossil fuel industry on the environment, human health, and human rights, and I'm sure many of you have specific climate concerns as well, but I want to emphasize a more targeted set of issues now. Some of the most devastating numbers quantifying this harm arise from the proven relationship between the development of oil pipelines in our country and sexual assault and violence against indigenous people. One of our best records of this violence is from the 2015 Bakken oil production pipeline in Montana and North Dakota. It was traced back to a 75% increase of sexual assaults on indigenous women of the Fort Berthold Reservation in that area. And those are only the assaults that have been recorded. A 2016 report showed that 4 in 5 Alaskan Native and American Native women have experienced violence in their lifetime, and to add insult to injury, 96% of these victimized women were victimized by non-Native perpetrators. To give a recent, more concentrated example, in February of this year, multiple Line 3 pipeline workers were arrested for the sex trafficking of indigenous women. Movements for indigenous rights continue to focus on these crimes and the many members of their community that have gone missing at rates we cannot fathom in our own communities. To be responsible environmentalists and citizens of the world, we must not only recognize the fossil fuel industry for all of its other moral transgressions, but also as an agent of modern-day colonialism for many indigenous people in this country. Woo. I ask now for a moment of silence out of respect for these people. Thank you. Sometimes it can be hard to remember that companies behaving with such a lack of regard for humanity are still made up of people. But just as these guilty parties are made up of people, so too are we. Each one of us has the empathy and will to choose differently, to divest. If the will to divest continues to spread from people like you and I, ChaseBank and other such chains with an unethical investment record will lose some of their numbers. They will lose some of their numbers as we gain powerful, compassionate voices. When we work together, we are influential. We are powerful. Woo! I was asked to elaborate a little on why I joined 350 Stevens Point. point and why I support divestment for all. My answer does indeed lie in the numbers. Having a community that supports my sustainable ideals and gives me an outlet to express them is invaluable in a time where climate records continue to warn about our approach to the iconic 4-degree rise in temperature and our increasing distance from our goal of 350 parts per million of atmospheric carbon. I've loved this planet ever since I started catching bugs as a child, and I'll never abandon my devotion to it. I'm sure you all share my sentiments, regardless of what inspired you first to care for the environment. As we stand here, on the front porch of one of many seemingly inhuman operations, I hope to have expressed that there can be injustice in numbers, but as you've proven today, there could also be power. So I ask you now, what